Welcome to the Big Change, the film interview series. My name is Jason Cohen. I personally have lost over 120 pounds, and every week I chat with people who've also lost significant amounts of weight, share their stories and the conversations we have. Including today's guest and myself, the total pounds lost is now up to 8,880 pounds. This week's guest is Rick Gloo. Rick told me that even as early as high school, he had become what he calls a competitive eater. He found himself gaining a bunch of weight through college, and there and after kind of developed a drinking problem and just really realized that he wasn't reaching his full potential. Through meditation, through running, and through changing his diet, he has reached his full potential. And we actually got a chance to hang out this week at Plantstock, and he was running his 364th consecutive day of running, which he the next day completed a total year, 365 days of running constantly every day. He told me about running in snow, realizing that he got to dinner and not running and running out of a restaurant. And we have a great conversation just about his story, his journey, the process, where he's at now, and kind of where he's going. And I hope that you enjoy our conversation. Thanks so much for watching. I'm here with Rick Gloo. We got connected by him reaching out to us through our website. And he's got a great story, lost 90 pounds. Sounds like he has an incredible running regimen now. And so first off, Rick, thanks for taking the time for reaching out. And maybe we could just start off with where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so from central New York, and when we tell most people New York, they think New York City, but like I said before, it's closer to Canada than it is to New York City. So, very rural nature, and so yeah, a lot of good trails to run and stuff like that.
That sounds awesome. So you've lost 90 pounds, but you were 250. So, what happened in between that? Did you grow up big or you gain weight when you were, later in life?
Yeah, so I think I started as a competitive eater, probably elementary school, whatever. A big box of Terrell potato chips. I would just crush them. But it was back in the day before technology, mobile devices, video games, any of that stuff. And I didn't really sit still. So, it didn't really hit me till college, the eating habit. And then, the sedentary nature of college and just sitting at a desk all the time, it just started to stack on. And then, I remember one time like joking to my roommate, like, because I sat at my desk for 2 weeks straight. I'm like, I can't feel my feet; they're numb. And he's like, yeah, it's probably not a good idea. And then really, it just probably went for another 10 years after that. Yeah, and then it was one big massive hangover that kind of changed it all. So
Wow. And so growing up, did you basically always have poor eating habits, or did you, looking back now, was there anything that was, that instilled any potential positive or try to instill positive, eating habits?
no, man, it was run and gun. If I could see it, I could eat it. And I'd get allowance on Friday, like $5, and go to the candy store and just buy king size Reese's Pieces and the whole deal. And I remember going to lunch for high school, and we'd be waiting for a big, massive like sub, and get 2 slices of pizza and a soda to max it out. And then I remember Tootsie Rolls used to be a penny a piece, so for $1, I mean, you can't go wrong going back to school with that. So yeah, no, it was just all out. But like I said, like we didn't sit at home. We used to hammer down on bikes and blow curfew and the whole deal. So you didn't really notice it until things slowed down, and then those habits just caught up pretty quick.
Yeah, and you're in college, you're gaining weight. Was it bothering you at the time, or was it even a consideration or a concern?
In college, it was more of a joke. It was like, let's see how much we can eat, and just get like I remember this one place, this bar had chicken wings for 10 cents, and I mean, holy cow, how can you beat that? So you get a couple massive pitchers of beer. We used to get 30, 30, 30 on the chicken wings of different flavors, so honey mustard, hot, and barbecue. And then it was kind of a regular Thursday situation. Usually 30 was a good milestone to get through in the night, personally, like for each of us. And yeah, no, it was just all out, just hammer down. And, you get drunk, throw up chicken wings, and go do it again next weekend. Like it felt good. But yeah, and I remember first starting out like in my career, and I'm like, this shit's not great. Maybe I should start eating turkey sandwiches. Like, and then for some reason, I thought turkey sandwiches were healthy, and that was the right thing. But yeah, that didn't work.
And then, did you get to the point? I know you gained a bit of weight. I also know that all this happened for you when you were kind of relatively young, from what I can see now. Um, but did you have any frustrations when you were bigger? Do you have any limitations, any challenges, and or did the medical play into it for you at all?
No, so there was no real medical aspect to it. Actually, I didn't go to the doctor at all, probably since high school, so I didn't really know of anything. And just growing up riding bike, like all that stuff, I just kept riding bike, and so I'd get hammered drunk on a Friday night and go do a 40-mile bike race the next day, and I'd be 230, 240 pounds, and it wasn't easy. Um, but so I still thought I was a kid, but God, I was dragging around a whole nother body there. But yeah, I'd slammed on a bagel with cream cheese. That was good fuel to go ride a bike for 4 hours. But yeah, no, there was no real medical aspect, and I was always kind of curious because I had family that had diabetes and stuff, and I was like, man, that's going to creep up on me someday. And then luckily, I kind of turned the corner before any of that stuff really uh, hit me.
It sounds like, like professionally, you had been pretty successful. And I think you even say, despite an outward appearance that everything was going well, the first decade of my adult life was spent drunk, overweight, fearful of the worst outcomes, and generally unhappy. Can you kind of talk about where you were at in life during those 10 years and how that maybe compared to what maybe other people thought where you were?
Yeah, so I don't know if you ever dealt with the winter, but the winter and the snow has a tendency to definitely like bury you and slow you down. So um, stay warm, stay drunk, and just get through the winter. And not moving. Just like I remember, like not being able to sleep, which didn't make sense without physical activity. But it's just like the anxiety of that. And I would just sit there and lay in bed and like be like, okay, if someone breaks into my house, like this is how I'm gonna jump out the window or block the door. And like, but I live in a small town of like 2,500 people, and like nothing bad ever happens. But it was just like I was like afraid of shit around every corner, and just like what the hell. So it was yeah, just always pounding beers and not really like living to potential or really it was just kind of slogging through, checking the boxes, going to college, getting a degree, getting a job, kind of shuffling through. Um, and I guess it's probably more in reflection now to realize like the difference of what's been unlocked versus how it used to be. And then, even like being hungover for, 12 hours after a good run the night before. It's just like you lose a whole damn day. Like, and it's just like, oh, well, might as well drink again to clean that mess up and, try to come into Monday and come through on fumes. So, yeah, I think it's probably more in reflection because it's all relative in the moment. Um, the pain doesn't seem as bad, I guess, when you're there. But now I look back and like I'll see people at weddings or parties or whatever, like starting to get drunk, and I'm like, man, you're gonna feel like shit tomorrow, and I can feel that for you. And I won't say anything. It's like everybody's choice is their own deal, but like I just almost get like a little like sick to my stomach when I see people. I'm like, oh, you're not gonna have a great morning. But yeah, a lot of that's in reflection, man. Like it's at the time I had no clue that I was kind of in a place that wasn't great for me.
So you kind of referred earlier to, and also in an email to me, that you did kind of have a low. Would you mind going back to that, describing kind of what led up to that, and just the detailing that?
Yeah, so I would say I started to have glimpses of things not being decent. I was working on probably a third degree or so. I went back to school just for the heck of it because work would pay for it. So I was like, all right, let's go work on another degree. And looking back, I estimated my caffeine consumption at probably like 1,500, 1,600 milligrams a day, which I had no clue at the time. It was just like I used to get this coffee from Alaska, and I don't want to swear, but I would call it Alaskan Thunder F. And I would make it in a French press, and God, that would be like high octane to get me out of bed. And then I don't know if I created the term filthy chai, but it was a chai with 3 shots espresso. That was like, kind of an afternoon get me rolling. Lunch was definitely a massive Dunkin' Donuts. And then I would come home from work, do homework, and so I'd make a pot of coffee around 9, pound that, and go to bed at like 2. And so I did that probably 8 months or so. And it was really interesting because that caught up with me, and I started to get really dizzy all the time and like sensitive to light. And I was like, I didn't know. Again, I hadn't been to the doctor, so I didn't know if I was diabetic, blood pressure, and I just kind of ignored it. And then I was at an academic function, and it's chow time, whatever. Have a coffee, it's all good. And I look across the table at whoever was across the table from me, and like their face just went like blurry, like it like kind of grayed out, and I'm like, holy! And I was dizzy like any other day, but it was like, I'm gonna freaking hit the deck here in a second. So I walked out, did the traditional splash the water on my face in the bathroom, went back to the dinner, and I was like, nah, I can't handle this. And in any type of situation, drinking, whatever, physically, I don't pass out. Like I don't go down. My legs are pretty strong. And so this was really sort of scary for me. And so I just bailed out of this dinner and started driving home. And again, I didn't know there was any health issue. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to crash my car. I'm diabetic, high blood pressure. I don't know. I'm going to die. I'm just going to die. I'm turning on reggae and opening the window and like the whole deal. And I get home and I go to my girlfriend. I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I got to go to the emergency room. Like, let's sort this shit out. And so we go to the emergency room and they look at me like I'm, kind of a pansy or whatever, because they're used to seeing people with their heads cut off. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm going to pass out. So they do the whole battery of tests, the EKG, the whole deal. And the doctor kind of leaves me there for a little bit. And he comes back in the room a little later and he's like, man, everything's good. Like all your stuff checked out. All your numbers are good. He's like, we have a little talk about caffeine. He's like, what are you doing for coffee? And what are you doing for sleep? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's, a pretty exciting situation at the moment. And he's like, well, you might want to tune that down. And I remember just laying in the bed and I like felt better at that moment. And I'm like, okay, if like my physical health isn't in too bad of shape, at least by their diagnostics, like what the hell else is going on? So, that was like the first step in kind of leading to some reflection on what the hell's going on in my life and where am I heading. And probably a week later, I don't know exact timeline, but I took off a Friday. And, we live up in the country and we like shooting guns and stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go buy a gun or I'm going to buy a chainsaw just for some fun and go out in the woods and blast some stuff. So I went between the gun shop and I was driving over to the chainsaw shop. And I was listening to NPR and there was an author on talking about meditation. And I'm like, what is this stuff? And I bought the book and immediately, as soon as I got it, I read it a couple nights, started meditating, started trying to sleep more. And again, I was still drinking at the time. I was still eating reasonably unhealthy. And I was like, wow, this crap actually works. Like, I'm just sitting still and breathing. Like, this is some hippie bullshit here. But, like I'm feeling better just by like sitting still for 10 minutes a day. And that was kind of the first sort of like, what the hell, like this is, there's a different path and it doesn't need to be a pill or, ideally not some surgery. And it was just like, when I was unhealthy, I was like, oh, cancer is inevitable. Heart disease is inevitable. It's like, I just, let's wait till I pull my card on that one. And then, that was like the first glimpse into to healthiness. And then just to extend it a little bit. So I had slowed down drinking. But then in like 4 months, I had a trip to Ireland planned. And that's not a great situation if you're trying not to drink. And I'm like, all of Ireland is going to kick my ass if I don't drink like all the alcohol they have. And no offense to Jameson Distillery, but they taught us how to drink whiskey like really efficiently. So I got back from Ireland and I was like a pro at drinking whiskey. And, it'd always been beers up to that point. And so then like the next 6 months, it was just on. And that eventually led into the final hangover, probably 5-6 months later. But those whiskey days, that was, it was fun, but it was punishing. So yeah, that was kind of like the first, I guess, year or so. It's hard to remember exactly looking back.
Yeah. Well, first off, there is a large amount of irony in the chainsaws, guns, NPR, and meditation story. I just have to make sure to point that out.
Yeah.
Well, so in your email to me, you said And you kind of, you talked about, you basically spent several days vomiting, aching, in a state of semi-consciousness, and then you say that you decided that everything unhealthy in my life needed to change. These habits were not serving me. I began sprinting down the path of health and wellness, but not without stumbling along the way. So once you had that last really bad hangover, it sounds like, number one, it must have been really bad because you really, decide. I mean, you didn't use the word sprinting, which to me it's like you're literally running to something rather than walking. So
Yeah.
what did that next little time period look like for you?
Yeah, so we roll into the last hangover there. It's I think December, which is starting to get dark around here. It's starting to get cold. Everybody's slowing down. And one of the local bands was playing on a Thursday night, and like they had this drummer that would go on like 5 minute drum solos. So what a great time to just kill 22 ounces of Guinness and just hammer down. Then Friday night, like a friend was home, and I was like, oh, we got to go ape shit and drink as much alcohol as we possibly can. On Saturday night there was a Christmas party, so it wasn't like I don't want to paint a picture of like a dark alley, like and I don't want to take away from people's stories that were dark because mine was happy, but it was just the sheer pain of the consumption that I took down on that weekend, and that Saturday breakfast started with like a 6 pack at like 9-10 in the morning, and then we shipped off to some Christmas party or a brewery Christmas party or something. And, I was chasing Santa around or whatever. I don't know. It continued on. And I finally, kind of hit the deck around 7 p.m. that Saturday evening. And Sunday morning, it was just on. Like, I swear to God, I felt every centimeter of my intestines. Everything hurt. There was fluids coming out of every place where fluids can come out of. It was just nonstop. And I remember I didn't eat, and on Tuesday, I talked to my manager. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make a meeting. Like, I might throw up. Like, and I pulled through. Like I'd gotten pretty good with all the caffeine and all the other situations of surviving. And then, Wednesday, like I go to my girlfriend. I'm like, because I had done a few like warrior dashes, like obstacle course races, because they have beer and turkey legs and the whole deal. And so I'd been running a little bit, and there was a beer bet that my buddy and I had with the Warrior Dashes. Whoever won, we gave each other $100 gift card. So that had been going on. So I'd had like a taste of running, and I was like, I have to stop drinking, but I need a new dragon to chase. And so I told my girlfriend, I'm like, I found this 50-mile event down in the Hudson River Valley or whatever. And she was all pissed off because she's like, well, that's the same day as my marathon, and you never come to my races because like you're always whatever, hanging out with your friends and the whole deal. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll sign up for your marathon that was in May or whatever. And again, I'm still, I believe, about 200 pounds at this point. And so I signed up for a marathon that week. My buddy at work, his girlfriend was vegan. And I'd always sort of been drawn to vegan and vegetarian and had tries with it before and plant-based eating. And I'm like, Steve, tell your girlfriend or your wife at the time, whatever she is. I'm like, I'm going to pay her. She's going to make me meals because I'll die of no protein or whatever. I don't want to do the research. I don't want to put in the homework. I'm like, just tell her I'll pay her like $60 a week, make me lunch. And he was all about it because then he got his lunch made. So like she started making his lunch every day. She was making awesome food, and it was always like a lot of food, but like it was healthy. So it was like chickpea salad and like, apple carrot sticks. Like it was like, I felt like mom had taken over, every day my lunch comes in, and it was delicious. And so after I really owe a lot to her to help me kind of get off the ground. And then after about 3 months, I'm like, man, this is like easy. I feel great. The training was going pretty well. And I'm like, I can do this. And then, rolled into that next, I guess it was 18 weeks of marathon training. Survived the marathon, obviously, an extremely challenging thing. But, and I remember I did have one meal kind of as a celebratory, if you will, meal after the marathon where I ate this freaking pork and beans. But it must have been like a baby pig because like the pork legs were like that. It was like so sad. Like I feel so bad right now looking back. But and I was like kind of grossed out, like because this was after the marathon, and I'm like, all right, let's start partying again. so I just signed up for another marathon in the fall. I'm like, I need another dragon. Like I need a dragon to chase. I got to keep my sword sharp and keep, there's always got to be a next thing kind of keeping me motivated and keeping me moving. And then, so that was like the only one time where I kind of like dipped my toe back and I was like, nah, that's no good. Let's keep moving forward. Um, but then it's been, full on since then. So yeah, this December will be 5 years. And in that training for the marathon program, I had done a half marathon, and the charity went to like an eating disorder charity or whatever. Like they donated, and I remember seeing a sign because I had lost some weight by then, and I remember seeing a sign that said 95% of people that lose weight gain it back within 5 years. I've since followed up, and that those numbers seem to be questionable, but still, it imprinted in my head like, yeah, good for you. You lost a few pounds, but you really need to like stick to it and commit to it for life. Like it's not about getting healthy; it's about being healthy. And there's no destination. Obviously, we're all going to die, but let's be healthy on our path there. So, yeah, that was kind of that first 6 months. It was kind of an exciting time, but yeah. Everybody always breaks my balls and says that I turn all the knobs at once. In an experiment, you try to isolate variables or whatever. Nah, I throw all the knobs and see what happens and go back and see how it shakes out.
So, like it sounds like you said, you're an all or nothing guy. How did you change, or how have you changed, or how has it changed your relationship with kind of that party atmosphere, the alcohol, and all that goes with that? Because it sounds like that was such a big part of your life. I'm guessing it was a big part of your relationships. Like how has that kind of evolved? In that first time period where I think setting yourself up for success, could be so important. But as you just alluded to, like things have a tendency to kind of fall back.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So that was really interesting, actually, to look back on. And like you said, like it's such a huge part of the culture and the group of friends. And I have the same best friends since elementary school, small town, and we're ball breakers, like dudes typically are. And I just expected them to ride me like a rented mule. And so, like the first time I went to the bar, I would still go every like. Okay, yeah. So there was probably a month or two where I literally didn't go to the bar, and my girlfriend was super supportive. We'd go out on like hikes and Friday nights, and but I would drive home from work and I'd be like, "Let's go, it's time to party!" But I don't know if it was a dependency. It was just like that's what we do. We get amped up and we go nuts and play loud music and drink beers on Friday. And so after like staying away for a little bit, the first time I went to the bar and ordered a ginger ale, my buddies, it was as if I had been drinking ginger ale my whole life. And I thought that was going to be the biggest part, was that social aspect, like drink a beer, take a shot, whatever. And that kind of like dissipated way quicker than I thought. It was like one or two times at the bar. Yeah, he drinks ginger ale now and nobody even cares. And they go on their way and they have a good time and do whatever they do. But the really interesting part looking back was how the triggers are associated with the behavior. And like, I was like, okay, it's the winter. I'm going snowboarding. We drink a beer after we snowboard. It's, it's the summer. We're on the beach. We're having a bonfire. I, eat pizza, chicken wings, and have beer at bonfires and barbecue. It's the fall. It's, apple season. We have hard cider and, thump some vodka in it. So it's like all these little things where it's like, these are the times we drink. These are the times we eat bad food. Like that behavior kind of had to be overwritten. And man, that took, because we got 4 seasons up here, like every season it's like a whole different life because it changed so drastically. Clothes changed, the whole deal. So that was really kind of crazy. Like it was like I had to quit 4 times because it's like, oh man, now it's camp season. We're out in the boat. We drink on the boat. We eat crap food. So yeah, that was really something I didn't expect. And I don't know how the hell you do it. Like, I don't know how I even did it. It was just like, kind of a commitment to, staying healthy and staying on the path. It was just, I really didn't want to go back. I didn't want to feel bad again. And, I really think it was that underlying tie not feeling like shit, and that reminder of that hangover and how bad I felt, and how good being healthy feels. Like I saw a quote recently or whatever. It was like, nothing tastes better than health, and God, it can't be more true. Like it's unbelievable. So yeah, that first year was really exciting. There's a lot of learning.
I bet. So you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but is there anything about this whole process that you just weren't expecting? I mean, I want to get into it a little bit, but it sounds like you're a pretty accomplished runner now and even triathlete. Um, is there anything about it, whether it's on the physical side of things, the emotional side of things, that you just plain weren't expecting, to happen as you're pounding, 1,400 cc's of caffeine
Yeah,
and beers and everything,
I don't think I expected to be a totally different person. Like, and I don't like. I would have thought I would have just been the same person I was, and just like a little lighter and a little more healthy, and everything would have been the same. But the highs of climbing a mountain and like not being able to breathe, and like the euphoria that your body gives you for that, it's mind blowing, man. And it seems so much like I didn't expect to crawl out of a hole and be able to like look up around and see like such possibility. I think that really is kind of taking me back a little bit. And I don't know, maybe life's been set up in a way for me that potential is available. But goddamn, like I had no clue that. I thought it was just like, okay, my body will change and I'll be the same person, But like, people I meet now are just like, what the heck? Like, what's your deal? So yeah, I think that's one kind of interesting thing is just I'm so much more enthusiastic about grabbing onto a new project or doing a new thing, where before it was just like, man, let's slog through life and whatever. I think that's really an interesting kind of observation or reflection.
So, what are you doing now, activity wise? And maybe not just now, but I know it sounds like you've had some times where you've done different things. So what have you done? What's your physical activity look like, or what do you enjoy?
Yeah, so you mentioned a little bit the triathlons and marathons, and that was mostly just like chasing something to keep me engaged and moving. And obviously, you hear a lot of people say a change in diet brings about this energy that like really requires you, like you would just rattle if you sat around the house, like it'd just be like. So it's like that energy needs a release, and so I think a lot of those earlier, and I've never done a full Ironman. I've done a couple halves, and a couple 50Ks and a handful of marathons. And that was just, it's never been competitive for me. It's just the challenge. And that's enough, is that challenge. I've never been fast by any means. In 2016, I went a little hard. I kind of got a little attached to an outcome of the marathon. I was just dying to break 4 hours. And I know for fast runners, that doesn't mean anything, but for the mortals out there, 4 hours is a nice little milestone. And God, I just trained so hard. And like, it was the Nashville Marathon. And I was so mad. Like at the end, I was coming into mile 20 and just everything fell apart like it usually did. I threw my shirt away. I threw my hat away. I threw my water bottle away. I just threw it all in the garbage. And I used to run in sandals a lot. So literally, I'm coming over the finish line. I got sandals on, shorts, and a heart rate monitor. And I finished at 3:58. And so I broke it, but God, it was so brutal. And it didn't make me any happier. Like it was just like, okay, I achieved that, but it was like I still got to deal with myself, but I'm still me, and that wasn't as rewarding as I had thought. So I kind of went into the summer sort of burnt out, beat down, and just sort of like needing to regroup a little bit. And actually coming into the Plantstock 2016 last August, Scott Jurek was there, and I hadn't been running much, and so we ran around the Esselstyn farm with Scott Jurek, arguably one of the greatest ultra marathon runners in the world. And he's just like shuffling along, chilling, like shooting the shit with everybody, like high fiving everybody. And I'm like, man, that's so interesting that like such an intense dude is just like chilling. And it just gave me this different viewpoint. And then I went from there straight to the Woodstock Fruit Festival. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that kind of got me like back fired up. And I was introduced to some friends there, Tim Van Orden and Jamie Woolsey, and they kind of introduced the idea of like slow, low intensity, consistent running, and kind of a focus on the process and not as much the results. And they kind of threw out the idea of running every day is something that's totally possible. And before that, I really thought like I would die if I ran every day. Like I thought like my knees were going to dissolve and my body would just explode and everything would go to hell. So I was like, I had run for like 5 or 6 days, starting with Scott Jurek and then into the fruit festival. And I was like, all right, let's see if I can make it through the next week, like week 2, and let's see if I can make it through week 3. And I'm like, there's no way I'll make it a month. And then I'm like, wow, we made it through a month. I'm like, all right, let's just try another day. Let's try another day. And got to the new year, and I'm like, oh, why the hell not? Let's just keep trying. And I was actually gonna quit while I was on travel. I was out in Hawaii, and we were on this like kind of crappy, really bad road. And so the goal has just literally been like, I'll go out for 2 miles. If it doesn't feel good, I'll go home. And usually it'll end up being, 6, 7, 8, 10 miles, whatever feels good that day. And I was like, how many days has it been? And I Googled like, how many days since August 21st? And Google's like 240. And I'm like, holy shit, I've been running for 240 days straight. And that's no treadmill, man. That's outside in the snow every day. And there's no goal in mind. Like, I don't really care about the athletic. I want to run faster, and I want to run like decent 5Ks and 10Ks and 15Ks, and all that stuff is really interesting. But it's just like getting out and moving like is unlocking me like mentally. So even if like I'm demotivated one day and I'm at like 30-40% capacity getting out of bed, I'll go do 2 miles around town. And it's just like, holy crap, I feel so good. And even if it just brings me to 50-60%, right? Like, every day is not going to be sunshine and roses and rainbows coming out of your ass. Like, but it's just like that slight improvement that like elevates. So that's really been the goal, is just to get, a daily run in and be healthy, be injury free. And I'm still hitting races and, coming near PR paces or PRing, but not super attached to that end result and not overly tied to any real accomplishment. So, yeah, so we're about 330 days now. And again, August 20 something, I'll be 365. And then doing a 50K within about 5 days of that. So that'll be the icing on the cake. But again, I never thought, like they always say, the journey at fucking 1,000 miles or whatever starts with the first step. Like I never set out to do 1,000 miles or whatever. It was just like, let's just run today. Let's just run today. So yeah, that's been a really interesting shift athletically. And man, I feel really good. Like it's crazy. So yeah, kind of a long answer, but
Sometimes you hear people talk about, like you give up chasing one thing for another thing. You kind of refer to chasing the dragon. Do you think that this kind of year-long experiment or journey that you've been on, do you think that's in a way kind of reset the way that you think about chasing the dragon, so to speak?
yeah, maybe a little bit, but it's also like helped break it down and like decompose, because I never had the goal of running for a year. Like that was never the plan. It was just like, can I show up and run today? Can I show up and run tomorrow? It's so like, what do we got today? Like, can I get out the door and just do 2 miles? If I feel like crap at 2 miles, I'll go home. Whatever. It doesn't matter. There's no training plan. As long as you can't see on the wall behind me. I did make a training plan for the 50K, but, like there's no real attachment to it besides just consistently run and try to feel good and try to feel comfortable. And then in the races, test our ability to deal with being uncomfortable. But yeah, it's maybe you're right. Like it is a little bit of a chase, but still, it's a commitment to health, sobriety, movement on a daily basis, no matter how I'm feeling. And some days are walk run. Like if I feel sore coming off a race weekend or whatever, like I'll just walk run. I don't care. Like I don't whatever. Like I love posting 15-20 minute miles to Strava and not giving a damn about it. It's so liberating. So yeah, there'll probably always be a dragon in my life. But uh, with that said, running every day in the winter, I've had some pretty ugly winters. Just, obviously we've talked about it a little bit. Man, this was like the best winter I've had in so many years. It was so great. Like getting out, every run was really challenging. It's tough to get out the door when it's 15 degrees and you got to put on 3 layers of clothes and the whole deal. But like, people around here bitch about cabin fever. It's like, man, if you get out of the cabin, you aren't going to have cabin fever. Like, I'm dying to get on the couch. I'm dying to get into bed, like, and be warm after being out running for an hour or two in that cold weather. And it's beautiful once you get out and get warmed up. But yeah, man, it's just that daily commitment to be in there. So yeah, the dragon is the day.
That's awesome. You need like your own shirts that say "The Dragon is the Day."
Hell yeah, there
Uh,
we go.
so obviously you mentioned you have the 50K coming up, and it sounds like this is kind of reframe, how you think about things. But do you have anything coming up that you're really looking forward to? Any goals that you have, whether they're already on the books or just in your mind?
Nah, man, just keep moving, chipping away. It's all good. The great thing about the 50K is it's a loop race, so it's 7.7 miles per loop for 32 miles, and there's 3 miles between each aid station. So I just try to get to the next aid station and eat as much watermelon and peanut butter and jelly as possible, and that's the goal. But yeah, it's just my biggest athletic goal is to try to run a half marathon at 80 years old, and that really sort of frames it. It's like, what the hell does a PR mean at 30 years old if I destroy my body and can't make it there longevity? I mean, running has just been such a great thing for me, and it really it helps unlock. And it doesn't have to be running, right? Like it could be yoga, it could be rowing, it could be weightlifting. Any movement, I think, unlocks us as humans and just makes us feel so much better, man. So if I ever can't run, I will certainly find something. It'll be thumb wrestling or whatever it's got to be. Uh, I'm gonna be moving because it opens the brain up, and I really think it gets things flowing. I think we're supposed to move however we can.
That's awesome. So, if you could have a conversation with somebody who's at the beginning of this journey, who's trying to figure out their way, you know, through it all, what would you tell someone, as they're starting out, maybe on day one or still early on, or maybe even haven't made a decision to make that transition?
Yeah, so I don't think this is novel at all, but it's not about perfection, and you got to be gentle with yourself. And you see a lot of people making a math problem out of nutrition, where it's like you need a PhD in like mathematics and nutrition science to like eat healthy, and it's like, man, if you're doing that much math to like be healthy, like something's a little off. But it doesn't have to be perfect, like a slip up doesn't mean you fell. And so it's just like, be gentle. And I love starting the morning with a mason jar full of water, like just a massive thing of water. I hit some dark chocolate, some bananas, a smoothie, a run, and just setting the day up right, like setting the day with a foundation that kind of starts. Even walking, like before I ran, I would walk 2-3 miles, just listen to podcasts, whatever. Probably cancel cable as fast as you possibly can. You know, Obviously Game of Thrones is important, but God, just take every opportunity to move and be healthy. And if you can identify that as a value that you're committed to, I think that's huge. But yeah, it's really hard in that early stage. It's you got to want the change, and it's hard to know when you want it. I don't know if that's going to help anybody get rolling, but yeah, just that commitment to the value, man. It's huge. Health, movement, sobriety, connecting with people, that stuff, you can't beat it.
Yeah, I think that being gentle with yourself is huge, and also, I've heard people say don't chase after perfection at the expense of progress.
Right.
Every day doing something. Like you said, you started out walking, now you've been running every day almost for a year. Like there's a big difference in there, but if you wouldn't have had that progress every step along the way, you would have never, been where you're at now. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so if you could have a conversation with your beer drinking 30 wing eating self, and maybe giving yourself some encouragement back then, what would you say?
Oh, dude, it would have started with probably a straight jacket of some sort. I don't know. I always say like if I had, yeah, I would have old me would have spit in today's me's face and just been like, get out of here, man. Like I don't know. I would have liked to think the old me would have been receptive at least to some discussion, but yeah, it's tough, man. When you're in that place, I don't know. It's nothing else makes sense, and I don't think I wanted it at the time. And like I tell this goofy story and it's again nothing novel, but my girlfriend went to the vet recently and they collect like or rescue ducks, and so you're taking your dog in and there's a freaking duck sitting on the counter like just staring at you, and this duck, it had a crooked neck. You ever seen a duck with a crooked neck? No, me neither.
No.
And so we're like, what the hell's the deal with this crooked neck duck? And they're like, oh, if a human or somebody helps the duck get out of the shell, like help break the shell, their neck doesn't form properly, and they have this goofy neck. And so, you gotta. I mean, it's okay to like help and be there to like keep the wolves away from people. Like, I'll keep the wolves away while you fight the hell out of that duck egg. But like, we gotta fight that fight to get out. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I almost think that pain is really what's fueled me. And I don't think that's a great answer for saving the world, but does that make sense? Like sometimes you gotta fight and struggle to be more resilient on the backside. So yeah, man, it's just I think it's possible, and the stories are there, and it's easy to see if you look around. But it's tough. It's yeah, that's my duck story.
Yeah, pain is oftentimes the ultimate motivator, unfortunately. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so, what's the best way if people want to try and connect with you or follow what's going on with your daily running numbers or even your 50K results?
Yeah, Strava's a great place. The 50K is the Green Lakes Endurance Race out of Syracuse, New York. So I guess they'll post results there. Don't expect, I'm not getting any podiums. I'm not going to the Olympics, but yeah, it's just to kind of embrace the journey, have fun. I love the course. I love the park it's at. So I'm just going to go out and have a great day and just, enjoy the community, enjoy the people. So yeah, Strava, I'm on there. Instagram, and then rickgloo.com. I got a little bit of a lot of the stuff we've talked about, but it was outlined in like a 12-part blog series that kind of described it. So yeah, there's an opportunity to connect there as well. Yeah, it's been fun, man. I'm never going back. We're chasing dragons every day.
That's awesome. Well, Rick, thanks for the time. Thanks for sharing your story, for some laughs, and I'll look forward to seeing you in Plantstock here pretty soon.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be great.
All right, have a great day.